there has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, and with me tonight, retired NYPD detective and straight out of Brooklyn, Phil Grimaldi. How you doing tonight, Phil?
I'm doing pretty good, Billy. How about you?
Pretty good. You know, this sort of came up. I don't think it was a big surprise. However, it sort of caught us by surprise. Not that it's a surprise that it was filed. And what I'm referring to is it's been nearly 1 year since Moab City officers encountered Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie to investigate a domestic violence call. Now the 22-year-old's family will file a lawsuit against the police department, saying law enforcement was not properly trained and did not follow the law before their daughter's death. In a press conference from Salt Lake City, the Petito's family's attorney formally announced the wrongful death lawsuit. Our parents, Joseph and Tara Petito, and Nicole and Jim Schmidt, are planning to seek $50 million in damages. While the full evidence has been made public when it is released, while the full evidence has not been made public, when it is released, it will clearly show that if officers had been properly trained and followed the law, Gabby would still be alive today, said James McConkey, one of the attorneys. Failure to follow law can have deadly consequences, as it did in this case. McConkey went on to say that the Moab City Police Department has a high turnover, lack of leadership, and dangerous mismanagement for years. The notice of intent, the precursor to file a lawsuit, names the responding officers, Eric Pratt and Daniel Robbins, along with former Chief Brett Edge and former Assistant Chief Braden Palmer as defendants. The local government now has 60 days to respond to the notice of intent. Petito's parents appeared remotely via Zoom. This is just bringing back a lot of pain, said Nicole, who was tearful during the press conference. Feelings, Phil?
Well, I feel for the family. I understand we're coming up on a year that she was murdered, probably on August 12th. A few days before that was when the encounter took place in Moab. So I'm sure it's definitely stirring up a lot of emotion and a lot of feeling for the Petito family. Obviously, when this case was all over the media, it was almost an international case in the media last summer. Everyone felt terrible about the fact that this young lady, an all-American girl, they were on a cross-country trip. They seemed like two people in love, and it was really a situation that kind of went off the rails, and everybody was pulling for young Gabby to be found safe and sound. However, it wasn't to be, and we know how it played out, that Brian eventually committed suicide, wrote a note taking responsibility for the murder of Gabby. And now based on, the video that took place with the encounter with the police officers, there's now filing a lawsuit. And I think that, I'm going to stay right on track what my opinion was in the beginning. I don't think that those officers did anything wrong against,
But Phil, you're coming from the world of reality. This is coming from the world of lawsuits and attorneys and expectations, and maybe unrealistic expectations, and would have, could have, should have, and maybe this,
Absolutely, Billy. And I understand it. I've been sued several times, and they can hang their hat. A lawsuit can be made for almost anything. And I think that the fact that there was an investigation and they did discipline the officers, which I wasn't in agreement with when that happened, that's making this lawsuit possible and strong. But I read the lawsuit quickly before we went on the air, and I want to read one line, which I think is going to be very important to this lawsuit. In it, it says, this is the part of the lawsuit where they go to the statement of facts. The statement of facts is where they put out the facts that they believe makes their lawsuit viable and strong. but it says that there was another photo taken at the time. Now, when we saw the video of Gabby, it didn't look like she was injured. There may have been a mark on her face, but there was no blood visible. It didn't seem like she was physically injured in a serious manner. There could have been a scratch or a mark on her face. However, it says there's another photo taken at the time, which has not yet been released publicly, shows a close-up view of Gabby's face where blood is smeared on her cheek and left eye, revealing the violent nature of Brian's attack. The photo shows Gabby's face was grabbed across her nose and mouth, potentially restricting her airway. Now, that is typical of a domestic violence situation. If that photo is entered into evidence, I think that's going to make this case very strong. I don't see a case like this going to trial. I believe there will be a settlement in favor of the Petito family. However, I do think that the officers tried their best. They did.
Well, Phil, let's get it. We'll get into that later. Let's play a little bit of what CBS has to say in regards to the press conference, but we'll get into that a little more deeper later.
Right now, the family of Gabby Petito is filing a wrongful death lawsuit in Salt Lake City, Utah. Let's go to it.
Awareness of intimate partner violence and its potential dangers. They have set up the.
Bill, could you just pause it there? I got to make a point, please.
This foundation has already donated hundreds of thousands of.
Billy, they're using the term intimate partner violence. I think they're using a fancy term that's in the lawsuit. They're using the term, it's called domestic violence in our world. They're using, they're dressing it up for the lawsuit. Intimate partner violence. That's a new one.
The other thing is never trust an attorney that wears a bow tie.
Dollars to groups focusing on intimate and domestic violence, including a $100,000 donation last week to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which I'm sure you're aware of. They hope their efforts to help will save lives and give meaning to the senseless, avoidable, and tragic murder of their daughter. Brian?
Good morning, and thank you for being here. As my partner Jim said, my name is Brian Stewart, and I'm grateful to be with you today and grateful for your attention to this important case. I will just say that at the outset that the purpose of this lawsuit is just one part of the family's broader effort to raise awareness and education to protect victims of domestic violence and to help make sure that our governmental institutions are held to account and that they are given the resources and training that they need to do their jobs in the effective way that they would want to, and to do it in a way that protects the most vulnerable members of our society and will prevent tragedies such as this one from happening again. Our purpose in filing the lawsuit, and the family wants to be clear about this, is not to punish individual officers, but is to honor the efforts of dedicated police officers. And while it is tough to do, we feel a responsibility to support them by demanding that changes needed to help them do their job better will be accomplished. We believe that the only effective way to correct these problems is to hold our institutions accountable for their failures, including in law enforcement. But as we said, this is just part of a larger effort to help other people and other victims of domestic violence understand that there are resources and that there are helps available, and that they can rely on those and rely on the response of law enforcement. The family will tell you, but they, throughout this last year, have been received many, many messages from victims of domestic violence who have told their stories of how they were inspired.
You know, I just wanted to say something. You know, we took apart the police response to this in great detail, and I'm a retired NYPD sergeant that spent many years on patrol, which meant that I responded to hundreds of domestic violence cases. And my observations, and of course, the whole response of the MOAB Police was videotaped on their body-worn videos. There was some camera, phone video. I felt that their response was pretty damn good. And we had discussed this in length when we covered this case. It's very easy, 2020 hindsight. You hear that term all the time. Monday morning quarterback, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning quarterback. Very easy when you know what the outcome was to say what the officers should have done. And I think when we were able to, after hours and hours and hours and hours of dissecting this case, we were able to say, well, had we known this and had we known that in real time during the case going down, we would have arrested both of them. And I think we said that. But after many, many hours of dissecting the case and not being on the scene and making the call in real time, which people don't always realize, that these officers, they spent, I think it was an hour and 10 or an hour and 15 minutes on this job. So it wasn't like they okey-doked it or they did a really fast, schlocky job. They covered many of the bases. They covered a lot of it. And I thought that, we said they did a pretty good job. But of course, afterwards, after we know what happened 2 weeks later when Gabby's body was found, 2 weeks after this incident, someone has said, or many people are saying now, that this incident, had it been handled differently, would have resulted in a different outcome to this case. In essence, Gabby would have never been murdered. Is that a possibility? I do not read palms. I do not read crystal balls. Could that have happened? Yes, I have to admit, yes, it could have. But maybe it wasn't a necessary element of this. Maybe it still would have happened had they arrested both of them. And that was the only thing that I could see as a law enforcement professional that could have prevented what the homicide, the murder of Gabby Petito from occurring. Because when you have a lot of people watching the response and the body language of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie, everyone is a genius now. Everyone says her body language is screaming out for help, screaming out. And he looks so guilty. I'm glad there's so many geniuses, and they're after the fact geniuses that can tell professional police officers what they saw or what they should have seen. Let's take a look and see what they actually saw and how they should have interpreted this.
Currently doing 45 miles an hour. Zone through here is 25. Oh, subject just hit the curb. Correction, speed limit is 15. I'm about 3/4 of a mile into the arches just before the gate. You want to place your vehicle into park and go ahead and turn it off for me? Yeah. No, park? Oh, it is in park, yeah. Okay, turn off your engine. Go ahead and set your keys on the dash for me, all right? What's your guys' names?
Gabby.
I'm Brian. Gabby, Brian, okay. What's going on? How come you're crying?
I'm sorry, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
It was a long day. We were camping yesterday, and camping got just out flies and stuff. I'm sorry I hit the bump there.
I was distracting him from driving. I'm sorry.
Can I get you to step out of the vehicle for me, man?
Yeah.
You want to tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just.
All right, so right now, obviously, she's very upset. One of the things that we wanted to know was, when did the police have the call from a civilian saying that they witnessed Brian slapping her prior to them getting in the car? When was that call? When did they get that call? We were told about that way down the line. Had we known, again, him Monday morning quarterback, but had we known as professional police officers that they had just got in the car, and prior to getting in the car, he slapped her in the face, all bets are off. It's a different story. And then as you dissect the story, we find out that she slapped him in the face with a phone, hit him in the face because he had cuts above his right eye. Different story, different game. Now we got to do something. And of course, everyone, after hours and hours and hours and hours of dissecting this hour and 15-minute encounter by the police, everyone's a genius.
Some days I have really bad OCD, and I was just cleaning and straightening up back of the van before, and I was apologizing to him and saying, I'm sorry that I'm so mean, because sometimes I have OCD and sometimes I can get really.
Phil, when someone over apologizes, what does that mean?
I think it's more of a defense mechanism. She's trying to cover up something that, taking blame. It's typical of domestic violence victims.
And if you notice, it will get to Brian soon. You're going to notice he does the same thing.
Frustrated, not like mean towards him. I just I guess my vibe is I'm really in a bad mood. And I was just saying, I'm sorry if I'm in a bad mood. I've just been really stressed. I had so much work I was doing on my computer this morning.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to work at an organic juice bar, but I just quit my job. Okay. I was a nutritionist. That's my job.
Cool.
And I just quit my job to travel across the country, and I'm trying to start a blog. So I've been building my website. So I've been really stressed, and he doesn't really believe that I could do any of it. So that's kind of been I don't know. He's like.
Gerda Kotsky, Bill, if you saw her in that emotional state and his calm and friendly state, what would your opinion be? I would like to hear your law enforcement opinion. I would be concerned that this, in fact, was a domestic violence incident that I would be afraid to walk away from without putting someone in handcuffs. How's that?
Billy, you read my mind before when you were saying that had we been on the scene based on the lawsuit, and they're talking about that there was a blood smear on her face. I don't see anywhere in these photos we're looking at, this video that we're looking at right now, that you do see blood. However, you're making the point. If you're there, you're on the scene, you have that other information that there was a phone call where someone witnessed her either being slapped and slapped or hit or forced into the car. She strikes him. This is sounding more and more like it should have been a cross-complaint type situation. Again, I don't see the blood. However, if you're there and you can see it, maybe it's not visible in this video, you get a better feel for things. And I think that Monday morning quarterbacking, as we're doing here, is really what we're doing. But if you're there at the time, it might have been a different situation. I still don't see that these officers can be called out and say that they did something wrong that would have prevented Gabby's death. I still don't see that here. However, I do see there's a possibility that maybe further action could have been taken.
Down there, I don't know. We've just been fighting all morning, and he would have let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't you
She just said there too. Again, if we want to dissect this frame by frame, we've been fighting all morning. Did he hit you? Did you hit him? With simple two questions, you could sort of get to the bottom of this, but they were treating this, they were trying to more or less, I think from minute one, they were trying to de-escalate this and just make this a referral. They were going to try to.
Bill, you know what though? I'm reading in the lawsuit too, further on from where they talk about the photo. It says, when asked about her fight with Brian, Gabby displayed the classic hallmark of an abused partner, attempting to take blame for the fight because she had hit Brian first. She had hit Brian first, and she did not want to be separated from him. That's the contention of the lawyers making the lawsuit. So they are admitting, and this could be problematic for them if this case would ever go to trial, which I don't think it's going to, that she initiated the violence by hitting him first. So again, and I am not trying to put Gabby or point Gabby and paint her in a bad light. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to point out something that's in the lawsuit that was put forward by the Petito family attorneys, that she was displaying the classic hallmark of an abused person. I get that. But they're also saying that she was going to take the blame for it because she struck him first. So again, does that mean she should be smothered to death and bludgeoned to death? Absolutely not. 100%. Brian is responsible for that murder. I'm just pointing out that there's something in the lawsuit that the family's lawyers they're conceding that she struck him first. So that's something that could be problematic had this gotten to the point of a trial before a jury.
In the car because
told me
of your OCD.
Told me I need to calm down. Yeah, but I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time, and he really stresses me out. And this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
All righty. Like I said, you're not in any trouble. So just go ahead and take a seat. Tell me what's going on.
Christina gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her. So, like, I locked the car and I walked away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog and everything. So I give her time. And we really had a nice morning with everything, but she just worked up as we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go like Arches or something like that.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand. That's why I was pushing her away, because she wanted. I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not.
So there he's saying she had a cell phone in her hand, and I don't know, he's saying she saw more or less accidentally hit him in the face with it. But that is, cross complaint number one. If they got the call from the complainant or the civilian that he witnessed him smack her, you have cross complaints and they both get arrested. Would that, again, Monday morning quarterbacks, would that have prevented what happened 2 weeks later? We don't know. And we don't know if that in fact is going to be part of this lawsuit.
Bill, let's play devil's advocate for a second here. Let's just say, okay, now he's got visible scratches. They noticed that. They talk about that in video. I didn't see anything noteworthy on her. However, cross complaint, they both get arrested or charged with some type of a domestic abuse charge. It's probably a couple of hours in custody and released. Now, do they go on their way and the same events take place that took place that we know now? We don't know that. We can't really say. We don't have a crystal ball, like you said. But I don't think, had this murder taken place the very next day or within hours, I would say there's definitely a great chance that it could have been prevented had they been arrested. But you're talking about, I think it was about 14 or 15 days later. So again, we don't know. Maybe it would have. We really don't know. But also in the lawsuit, they talk about how she was on the phone with her parents. And when the police officers said that they were going to be separated, the parents were okay with that. So there's stuff in the lawsuit that's worth looking at if anybody wants to check it out online. I think that the lawsuit is there. And, whether or not it gets settled is another story. I think it probably will be. But why don't we go on with the video and take a look further?
Go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute. She was getting worked up. And then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys to it. So that way I was just trying to, I know I shouldn't push, but I was just trying to push her away to go, let's just take a minute, step back and breathe. And you see she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand? Oh, you got a mark right here. So you said you pushed her to create some distance, obviously, right? What happened after that? What got the scratches on your eye?
The phone.
The phone. So you push her and she hit you. She was. It wasn't like a push and she jumped on me. She was already. I don't know what. She was already swinging and I was. A lot of angles, a lot of nails, a lot of rings. Yeah, you got 3 scratches in your neck. You got 1 on your left side of your nose. You got 1 in your face here, and you got 4 blood bleeding on there.
So he's got some marks on his face. He's talking about a physical encounter that they had. Still doesn't rise to must arrest at this point. Doesn't rise, but you know when you talk about the phone call to if they in fact had that someone witnessed him smack her, to me that's a game clincher and he's getting locked up. And then when you do your investigation and you find out that there was a physical altercation between them, to cover your own ass, unfortunately that's what policing has come to in this world. I would have locked both of them up, and I cringe when I say that, but I know I've done this before in the past. And a lot of it was to protect myself for people questioning my actions. Or why didn't you arrest both of them? She hit him, he hit her, you know. And, you know, a lot of times you'll get these domestic violence advocates that 100% the woman is always right. And that's not true. That is not true. I've been to hundreds of DV cases. And if you want to believe that, you're coming from the advocacy that a woman is always right in DV, and it's not true.
Your right sleeve for me? I'm curious about something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a little bit of nails. I suppose fingernails, but yeah, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining about fingernails.
Is it bruised or tender or anything like that?
No. Okay. I'm fine. I look at it. I hope she doesn't have too many complaints about me. I'm just, I feel bad I didn't get so public. I was just trying to be loud. So this is, you know, try to make her calm down and be like, look, everyone's watching. And like, stop this.
We'll take pictures of them.
No, I haven't done any of that yet.
Ryan, unfortunately, in the state of Utah, we don't have discretion on some things. Like, for example, if I pull you over for speeding and I want to give you a warning, I can do that because it's under Class A. It's a Class B or under. If I want to give you warnings for all kinds of stuff, I can. But there's a few things I can't. When I say I, police, I'm not in charge of anything. One of the things that the state legislature doesn't give us discretion on is charges when it comes to domestic assault. And it sounds like you guys are living together, so you meet the statute for domestic partners. And you do have injury, and both an independent witness, probably the next one we're going to talk to as well, which we haven't talked to yet, but the ones we did talk to, and your own companion have made it clear that she was the primary aggressor and that she was striking you and you just received injuries. You have evidence.
He just used the term primary aggressor, which is a very important term because many times that is how the decision on who gets arrested is determined. Who was the primary aggressor? Lock up the primary aggressor, use the other person as the complainant, and one person goes home, the other person goes to jail. Unfortunately, none of this is a science that we could, you know, look at the chemicals and say, this is the right decision. It's a judgment call. And do the police always make the right call? No, absolutely not.
Striking her, she has not admitted to striking her. The witness did not see you strike her. So at this point, you're the victim of domestic assault. Even if you didn't want to pursue this, we don't have a choice. The best thing we can do to not.
You know, Schmitty in the chat says the one officer Googled the policy when he should have called the supervisor. The fact that there was no supervisor on the scene is baffling to me. They should have called.
In the lawsuit, it says he called the supervisor on the phone, and it was a chief, and the chief told him to Google it, the statute, and read the statute, and then he should decide if it's necessary to make an arrest or not. That's what it says in the lawsuit. I don't know if that actually was the actual facts that took place, but it sounds like the supervisor wanted to keep himself out of the mix there.
You know something, Phil? There were guys that would do that, and I found that despicable. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't want to go to a scene that was what we would call in the police department a potential Megillah, because they knew that it was going to come back on them. But that's why you get paid the big bucks. That's why they used to say that all the time. That's why the boss makes the big bucks to make those decisions. And if you're not willing to make those decisions, you shouldn't be a boss. You know.
Well, the cop on the scene, if he decides on his own without calling a supervisor that he's not going to make an arrest or he's going to make an arrest, isn't it the supervisor's job to say, okay, I'm going to authorize the arrest? Now, if you call me to the scene, I'm making the call. Correct, Sarge?
Yeah, but something, the boss belonged on the scene for this case.
Yeah,
he didn't
I agree
belong
with
on the
that.
phone because
I agree with
there's
that.
so many ways the boss by phone, he can say, oh, he never called me. He never asked me. He has so many outs. But if he's on the scene, he doesn't have that out. He has to do what's right if he's on the scene. So
Absolutely.
a phone call in this situation, I don't like it. I don't think it was the right choice.
The lawsuit we have to charge her doesn't say we have to put her in jail. Okay, but it also says we have to separate through a no contact order, and we have to put her in jail if we cannot separate. And the little problem here is you guys can't afford to live in the van together. How are we supposed to separate you guys?
So, this is what I'm going to do. I've decided I am not going to cite you for domestic violence battery, okay? It was only going to be a Class B misdemeanor. However, the domestic violence portion of it enhances it. Makes life a major pain in the butt, especially you're 22, right? So I'm choosing not to cite you today. So you are not going to be charged with it. All right? But this is what I do have to do. I am separating the two of you tonight. Okay? I want you guys both to be tonight away from each other, relax, breathe, crying, because there's no reason to be crying now, okay? I understand that this can feel like it's a nightmare.
Trish Norman, she asked the question, why is a boss necessary on the scene for this? A boss in the police service is known, usually has more experience. He gets paid to make these decisions of law and decisions of judgment. The officers don't. If the officers don't want to call, or they don't call the boss to the scene, they can be found remiss in their duties. Certain incidences, they're supposed to call the boss. They're mandated to call the boss.
Right.
And in a situation like this, most cops don't want to put this on themselves. I made the decision. You should have called the boss. That's what he gets paid for.
I mean, bosses are called to the scene nowadays in the NYPD to verify an arrest, to say, okay, we feel that there is probable cause that you put handcuffs on this person or you're going to. So a lot of times they're doing that. Bosses have more specific training, obviously, in the law. Usually a boss has more time on the police force than a police officer generally. So that's why I think that they're using the bosses to verify arrests. And again, it precludes lawsuits like the one we have in front of us.
Absolutely.
On top of it, okay? So, you're going to be taking the van tonight, and you're going to go somewhere else. I am going to get him lined up for the hotel room tonight. I want you guys to stay away from each other.
Here we go. He makes a decision. He splits them up. He basically gives her a lecture. I want you guys to have nothing to do with each other. I'm going to put you in a hotel. And he's satisfied with this. And I think everyone watching this, not knowing what's going to occur 2 weeks or 15 days from now, would be like, yeah, that's reasonable. I think what the officer did was reasonable. He protected her and he separated them, but something horrible happened. Someone was murdered. And now you look at this and you say, that was totally the wrong call. That was ridiculous. In fact, it's so bad that we're going to file a $50 million lawsuit because the wrong decision was made by law, the wrong decision was made by experience, and the correct decision would have saved Gabby's life.
Billy, the officer, the way he's speaking, his posture to me sounds like they're categorizing her as the primary aggressor. That's what it sounds like to me. He says, I'm not going to charge you with the B misdemeanor, although it sounds like I could. We're going to separate you. So I think from what their encounter has revealed, and I mean, I'm not in their minds, but from watching this video, it sounds like they were targeting her as the primary aggressor.
Follow the grain in your own wood. Sometimes a cool down period ends up being a ticked off period, and you can get stuck in your mind with awful thoughts. Follow the grain in your own wood. Do you work in the field of domestic violence? Because you seem to know
It sounds like it.
a lot about it, and just by your comments, I think that you're more than someone that just is in the chat. Is that correct? You know, you work in that field. Here's someone she wrote again. I'd bust her exactly, and they should have recognized that. So they should have recognized maybe some signs of domestic violence based on the body language of Gabby and the body language of Brian. They should have known maybe that this was a long-term domestic violence issue that just didn't occur that day and escalated that day. They should have recognized signs that this was an ongoing problem. Is that what you're saying? Follow the grain in your own wood?
Bill, we've gone over this, and we've said before about the universal term, the hand signal for a person that needs help. And we talked about the fact that had the officers just asked her the simple question away from Brian, are you okay? Do you feel safe? That may have changed the whole dynamic of this encounter with the police. We've pointed that out before. And again, this is the things we're going to take away from the that maybe going forward, officers across the country and probably throughout the world with in-service training regarding domestic violence, that they can do these things, the international hand signal regarding domestic violence victims. And again, just getting that person away from the other person. And you know, she was obviously very, very frantic and panicked throughout the whole ordeal. But to ask her those words, do you feel safe? Are you okay? Do you need me to help you? I don't know if they actually said that to her or not, but I think that those are the things we can take away from this horrible situation.
Janice Martin, she took it on herself right from the beginning. She was probably afraid of him and didn't tell them. Yes.
Sounds like it.
I think so. I think that was probably one of the things that, and like what Phil said, they just didn't maybe ask the right questions. Has he hit you before? You know, are you safe? How has your trip been going? Have you been fighting every day? You know, those questions, the answers to those questions maybe would have given them answers to where they were in this situation.
For both of you guys, the same. From what you told me and what he told me, you guys have a bunch of little things that are building up, and finally the little string that you guys were tight walking on the road tonight. Does that sound about right? So I just want everybody to breathe, get a chance away from each other, go eat a meal, talk to your parents, whatever it is you got to do.
Follow the grain in your own wood. No, not that. These two young adults are basically troubled, and they are stuck in a small place, I think you meant, so far from home. That should have been recognized. I would think that, yeah, that should have been recognized. But as Phil and I said early on in this, the officers spent an hour and 15 minutes investigating this case. And overall, we think, and as professional police officers observing this numerous times, we think that they did a pretty good job. Not a flawless job, but a pretty good job. And now, of course, even myself, I can watch this video knowing what occurred and see things that maybe I didn't see initially. I see how, you know, Gabby just looks terrified, that she's this terrified little fawn, and he's this sort of manipulative, maybe not the primary aggressor. Maybe you can't use that term for him, but he's a manipulative guy that doesn't seem to me at all like a nice guy. He seems more manipulative, and he'll do whatever he has to do to get himself out of hot water.
Billy, he was definitely playing the role of a person trying to flip the script, so to speak. We see that now. It seems almost obvious at this point, but we've learned a lot in the last year looking at this case from people that are experts in the domestic violence field. We've spoken to women who are victims of domestic violence, and we learn a lot of different things. And I think that the officers made a judgment call after spending, like you said, an hour and 15 minutes with this whole situation. And based on the fact that she was the person that struck him first, and he had the scratches that were more visible, as it appears. So they took the time to pull up the statute on Google. However, the chief that they conferred with should have been on the scene. We've agreed on that. Not that may have changed it. He may have gone along with what they did, but however, the chief should definitely have showed up on the scene, the supervisor, whatever you want to call it. And again, they made a judgment call, and I am sure that they feel terrible about the call that they made, because we know the facts now that 15 days later, she was murdered by Brian Laundrie. And again, if they could take it back, I'm sure they would. Would that have changed what happened? We don't know the answer to that, but I really think that pointing a finger at them and saying, had these officers did this or these officers did that, this young lady would be alive. We cannot say that. We cannot come to that conclusion here today, knowing what we know.
Lynn Scratich, they were pulled over for speeding, no ticket. I would have never given a ticket in this incident either.
Yeah,
that was just a reason.
It's peripheral to what was really going on.
It's totally peripheral, and there was no reason to give them a summons. 50 million, Nadine F. asked for what? It's a wrongful death lawsuit.
Yeah.
One of the things I just want to mention, after this incident occurred and there was international blowback in regards to the investigation conducted by the MOAB Police, the MOAB Police hired an outside police consultancy to look at the response of the officers to this incident. And they did find them in the wrong. They found that they did several things wrong, but they also said that they did several things right. But overall, their results of their investigation was that they erred in what they did. So for that reason also, I believe that this lawsuit is definitely the Petitos are going to win this lawsuit.
I think there's going to be a settlement of the lawsuit as well, Bill. But I think that what the investigation revealed, there was obviously, they didn't do anything criminally negligent in how they handled the situation. There was they're saying that some of the procedure was violated, that they should have done some things differently. And they also pointed out, as you said, Bill, they did a lot of things that were correct by trying to find the statute and stuff like that, separating. They did take a lot of steps that taught every day in domestic violence training. They did follow procedure. However, they found one or two things, whatever it was, that they say that they could have done and they didn't. So they did discipline them for that. Again, with that said, I think it's going to be a slam dunk to get a lawsuit settlement out of this case.
Detective Scott Wagner, the Rose of Spanish Harlem.
The
only mistake I feel they made was not having a boss respond to the scene. I think that would have protected them. I think it would have protected the boss. And I think it would have protected the Moab Police Department from what they're facing right now, which is this lawsuit. Phil, I think
shown up, he might have said, you know what, guys, I see an injury on Brian, arrest her or arrest them both. We don't know. So had he responded, yeah, I think that's a great comment by
folks. This is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. If you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to help us out, we have if you'd like to contribute to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and you can join up and help and contribute to us. We also have a YouTube membership with over 5 different levels. If you want to contribute to that, you could go on and contribute to YouTube. Folks, we also have an attorney who advertises with us, and that's his information right there.
Joe Murray, attorney at law. Have you found yourself in a jam? Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York area? Do you need a victim's advocate? Well, Joe Murray is your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. He literally knows both sides of the fence. His website is jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702, or you could email Joe at jmurray-law.com. Joe is a great friend of Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. He advertises with us, obviously, as we're doing right now. And if you'd like to advertise with Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories, just send us an email at policeoffthecuff1@gmail.com. Rates are very reasonable. It might be the right thing for your business, and we do have an international audience.
So, folks, this case, one of the things that the Petitos, I think that their heart is in the right place. There's a Gabby Petito Foundation now that is donating money, and they may donate much of the proceeds of this lawsuit to women who are and men who are victims of domestic violence. That's important. There's never enough money. We have women that are victims of domestic violence, and one of the biggest problems they have is, where did they go to get away from the abuser? Where can they stay so that the abuser doesn't know where they are? And that's where funds and donations and all that type of thing, they have no source of income. They need money. So these foundations, even maybe the Gabby Petito Foundation, will donate money to these victims of domestic violence. And it helps tremendously. And this is a huge problem, domestic violence, not just in this country, all over the world. And the problems are, it's something that is the same in almost every country. Who is the primary aggressors? People getting killed in domestic violence incidents. It happens all over the world. And that's why the procedures and the police procedures have changed over the years to protect the victims of domestic violence.
Billy, it's actually a shame, because it always seems like every time that there's a domestic violence incident that leads to either serious injury or death, where a person is killed or severely injured, there's always a history of it. And it seems like mind-boggling at times, and very, very frustrating that maybe there wasn't a hand to reach out to help that victim, or some type of a service in place that they could turn to. So we've talked about it in the past. And I think, like you said, the Gabby Petito Foundation, there's that foundation, which is a great foundation. I actually donated some money myself. And there's so many other foundations, but we really need to educate about this. We need to educate law enforcement, and we need to let people know. And I think when we had a victim of domestic violence, we had a young lady on, and we had a college professor, and they both said the same thing, that there needs to be the help that someone can reach out to, so they don't become another statistic of domestic violence.
Nadine F. Sorry, Bill, I don't agree their hearts are in the right place. The insurance coverage for the police departments is not to provide money for giving. Nadine, the New York City Police Department gets sued for millions and millions of dollars every single year. And you know why? Because they have deep pockets. That's why. Because everyone knows if they sue them, there's a good chance they'll settle. And maybe if the New York City Police Department and some other municipalities took the posture that we're going to fight every single lawsuit, you wouldn't get these lawyers who we call ambulance chasers suing for every single thing. A cop arrested me, a cop hit me, a cop did this, a cop did that, a cop pulled me over and was rude to me, cop slapped me, whatever it is. If they fought these lawsuits, you wouldn't have as many lawsuits. I think I was taught that Disney World, they fight every single lawsuit. So whenever Disney World gets sued, they fight. They take every single lawsuit to court. What does that do? Well, it results in a hell of a lot less lawsuits, because the attorney's like, I'm not suing. We got to spend a fortune before they'll even pay us, because
Billy,
lawyers want to get paid.
I got to comment on this from a personal standpoint. In 1986, I was involved in a shootout where I'm not going to go through the whole story, but they shot out the window of our radio car. My partner fired back. I fired back. I shot one of the guys. I was sued in 1992. Went to an examination before trial, a hearing. The guy really did terrible. At the end of it, the corporation counsel's attorney, when we were walking back from the courthouse back to his office, I asked him how I do. He said, he did great. I said, this guy's not getting any money, right? He goes, well, we already offered him $10,000. At that time, 1992, he said a trial can cost the city up to $50,000. I later found out they settled and gave the guy $40,000 that opened fire on three police officers, shot out the window with a radio car, and they had committed a robbery. However, the city felt it was cheaper to give the guy $40,000 that tried to kill 3 police officers, committed an armed robbery, give him $40,000 because it would have cost $50,000 to conduct a trial. You know, that's what would have cost the city. So this is the thinking that they have. And now in 2022, the numbers are much, much higher. The settlements are there. And again, an officer doing his job as I was, we wound up getting sued and the city paid out rather than go to trial. It's not a good policy.
Bo Peep. First of all, I love your name, Little Bo Peep. There's no little there. It's just Bo Peep. If Gabby trusted Brian enough to stay with him after this situation and didn't see this coming, how could the police see it coming? She thought she knew him, but misjudged him ultimately. Well, the police have to judge things based on the law and apply the law. And yeah, they don't, it's an unforgiving job. You know, I know I've used this expression a million times. A million attaboys don't equal one shit. And that was my favorite expression in the police department. Simply, it means you do 100 things right. You did one bad thing and they want to take your children from you, you know? Yeah. And it's true. A million attaboys don't equal one shit. So you did a million things right, but you did one thing wrong and they want to cut your head off. But that's life in the police department. Mary Williamson, Billy, thank you so much for the $30 super chat. Mary. I love this channel. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Bill, I want to make another point. Gabby Petito's family has been pretty outspoken throughout this whole ordeal, and you really got to sympathize with them. My heart goes out to them. They lost a beautiful young daughter, but I don't think that they had such an axe to grind with the officers in the Moab Police Department. I don't know what their feelings are now. I mean, the family, the lawsuit was filed on behalf of the family, but I don't think that they really seem so angry at the Moab police that, you know, had the officers arrested Brian or arrested Bolton or whatever, that this would have not occurred. Again, it's part of the legal system now. They're filing a lawsuit against the officers. I do believe that there's going to be a settlement based on the fact that they did discipline them. So again, I wish Joe Murray was here to discuss it a little further. I think his spin on it, or any attorney.
I don't want Joe Murray pissing anyone off tonight, so I didn't invite him.
He does have he
has a knack to piss people off sometimes. So I said, let's leave the lawyer out of tonight's episode. Janice Martin. I think one thing is that we were stuck together in this van traveling. We don't really know what happened the day she died. We only know what he said, which made no sense. You know, Janice Martin, I don't know your personal life. I don't know if you're married. I don't know you're a significant other or whatever. But I think it's tough to hang out. Look, I'm married. I've been married for 33 years. If I hang out with my wife too long, I get a little perturbed. I mean, I never, ever hit her, but I mean, we get on each other's nerves. Maybe she wants to hit me. So it's human nature, I think. You get on each other's nerves. You know, you need to get away from each other. Traveling in a van they were in it for 2 or 3 months. Tough to do.
Very tough. Again, domestic violence is never acceptable. Any violence is never acceptable. But Bill, you're making a great point. 2 people traveling in the desert and they're in this van and, you know, whatever they were doing, it's very easily could have gotten on each other's nerve and getting into a domestic violence situation. And again, that may have been one of the things that the officers took into account. You know, they've been together, they're traveling, they had this argument. It doesn't look like it's real serious. Let's separate them for the night. And in their minds, maybe they're thinking they're going to go on their way and everybody's going to live happily ever after.
I love this. And Pauline, Rob, you must be a marriage counselor, but I love this advice, but I don't agree with it, but I love it. not to be insensitive, but the best way to know if a good relationship is going to last is to take a cross-country road trip. First, call Jacoby and Myers and register with them. I don't know if I agree with that, but it's a good suggestion. I don't know if many people would like to take a cross-country trip with their significant other, their wife, their whatever, and if they could get along. You know, the only two people I know could go across country and get along?
Who's
the
that?
Pranzos. The Pranzos. Lieutenant
I
Pete.
knew you were going to say that.
Lieutenant Pete and Richella. And they would have to have a gigantic Winnebago with a whole section with Italian cheeses and sauces and sausages and all of that. That's the only way they could get along. I don't think they'd get along in one of those little vans that Gabby Petito had.
Yeah, I'm with you, Bill, on that. But again, I don't want to, sort of make any kind of disparaging, feelings about the Petito family. They lost their daughter. They're going through a terrible, hard time, I'm sure. The anniversary's coming up, and, their lawyers are doing this on their behalf. And, it's easy for us to sit here, and we've been talking about Monday morning quarterbacking all through the show here, and actually through the last year that we've been covering this show. It's horrible what they're going through, and again, the things I think we should do is try to pull information out of it to teach law enforcement and to make people aware of it. Just so if you're caught in a relationship that's not good, get out of it, run away, or get help, seek help. There's a lot of different avenues that you can go to get help in these type of situations. So we're not trying to disparage the Petito family or knock the lawsuit in any way, shape, or form. We're just giving our professional opinions. That's what I'm doing, giving my opinion from past experience.
And I'm causing problems in the marriage of the Prenzos because Richella is saying, try sitting side by side for years while finishing up a book. I quit many times.
Yeah. That's truth be told right there.
That's right. I don't want to cause any marital problems in the Pranzo household. But
you know what, though, Billy? It's human nature. I think it comes down to it's human nature. Listen, guys could be hanging out with each other and get on each other's nerves. Partners, husband and wife, whatever it is, you could get on each other's nerve, and that's why you got to have an eclectic amount of friends and loved ones.
That's for sure. What I just lost, I had someone's, follow the grain in your wood. I like your name. So very sad, DV taken lightly and in a place for no one to see or hear you scream for help. The warning signs were there on public display. Yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's as obvious as many people say.
She sounds like a professional, Bill, and maybe she sees through some of the warning signs. She might be seeing it a little clearer than you or I do, or even those officers do. So again, that's something we need to educate ourselves on, and the public needs to be educated on, and specifically law enforcement, because if those signs are really there and they were missed, it's a shame. It's a terrible tragedy.
Leah Simpson, I took a cross-country trip from Indiana to Oregon when I was 20 with my boyfriend. I'm 42 now, and we've been together since then. Hey, that's great. Congratulations. I don't know if I could do that, but that's fantastic. What else we got here? I'm trying to read through. Kerry Adams, to me, it seems a little, we're talking about the lawsuit. I would think in situations like this and all of the bad things that occurred in this and the bad blood between the Petito family and the Laundries, I would think that a lawsuit was inevitable. There was no way that there wasn't going to be a lawsuit. Marilyn Mineta, you guys are my favorite show on YouTube. Every show is awesome. You cover so many of good topics. You're great. Love you guys. I know we all feel that way about you. Hats off to you guys. Thank you so much, Marilyn.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. That's a great
Very
compliment.
appreciate it. I'm not going to, and during the daytime when I do those little shows, Coffee with Cannon, Bitching with Bill, Backyard Beverage, every once in a while I'll sing a song, but I don't sing any songs at night. I don't want to lose the audience,
Yeah, that's a different genre.
That is a different audience, different.
Sit and chill with Bill. That's what I call it.
That's right. Pauline Robb, I would rename it a wrongful death suit. Just negligence is good. Well, I mean, they're in this. They're suing the Moab Police for their actions, for wrongful actions that in the lawsuit resulted in the death of Gabby Petito, because it's either commission or omission. And they're probably claiming that it was through their omission that Gabby Petito wound up 15 days later losing her life. And had they done the right thing, she would still be alive today. And that's somewhere in the lawsuit. I think that language will be there.
In the lawsuit, Billy, they first state statement of facts, and they go through the story of what they believe happened. And then they go into nature of claims, which is kind of the legal mumbo jumbo. And then the damages incurred. They go over what damages they feel that the family incurred for the basis of the lawsuit. So again, there was also that other lawsuit against the Laundrie family. And in my heart of hearts, I really feel like the Laundrie family really did much more egregious things than those two police officers did in handling of that. And that's a story, I guess, we've covered already, and it may be a story for another day going forward. But their behavior, their posture, when Brian came back to Florida, was just horrendous. And I feel more they may not have been so responsible for the murder, but their actions after, which I think were much more egregious.
I agree. Buster Teal, you don't know how much the Petitos have put into their fight. Well, Buster, if you were referring that they pay for these attorneys, they do not. These attorneys take these cases on basically a consignment that you agree that if they win, they get 33% of the proceeds. And that's how these cases are. No one puts up any money for these type of cases. The attorneys take it, hoping and thinking that they're going to win.
He might be referring to the statement I made earlier that they didn't come out publicly against the Moab Police Department, and they didn't. So I think that that's clear. However, the attorneys, when a lawyer looks at the whole picture, he sees, all right, you know what? These officers were disciplined. We can sue them. And they decided to do that. And, they're within their right. And I do believe they're going to be successful in their lawsuit. I said that from the onset.
Squirrel sandwich. What? Squirrel sandwich. What do you put on that squirrel? Mayonnaise? What is there a special sauce? Is there a special squirrel sauce? I just like to know. Will all of the body cam footage be shown with this lawsuit? Absolutely. 100%. All of that will be subpoenaed, and all of the body cam footage is part of discovery.
Yeah, that will all be entered into evidence in this case, 100%. And again, like I said before, a lot of times these lawsuits get settled. There will be examination, will be depositions. All of these things will come out. And then I'm sure there's going to be offers and negotiation. That's how I think it's going to go.
Janice Martin, if they win, could this set a precedent in arrest in the future? I don't think so, because
the president's already there.
Yeah, police departments get sued all the time. They make mistakes every single day. And basically all they can do is say, yes, the lawsuit resulted in recommendations that we changed this, we changed that. We have training in this and training in that. And we've done all of that. That's all they can do. They can't, apologize. That's one thing, like people would always say, like in like lawsuits or an arrest. Oh, why don't you apologize? You can't apologize, because if you apologize, you're admitting guilt, right? So you can't apologize. And anyone that would apologize is a fool, because that will be used against you to say that you were wrong. You were wrong because you apologized. So you can never apologize,
Bill, I believe the president was sent way back when the Nicole Brown Simpson and I can't think of the guy's name, Ronald Goldman, were killed. That's when things changed in the NYPD, when we went from domestic violence cases that could be referred to court, whether it be family court or criminal court, as opposed to must arrest situation. And again, that policy's been in effect for quite some time. I mean, that happened in the early 90s.
Phil, I'll tell you, on the NYPD, what was a precedent-setting case, and we had Irma Rivera on numerous times, and the precedent-setting case was Joel Steinberg and Hedda Nussbaum, because he killed his daughter, or she died from abuse, and he beat his wife so badly that she looked like E.T. Her face was out like this. And the officers, because they were intimidated by the fact that he was an attorney and he made them stand on the landing outside the door, they never did a proper investigation. They never went into the apartment. So when it was a horror show. And then I think at some point, special victims or the precinct squad went in and saw the horrendous scene, the horrendous condition of the apartment, the crime scene, the condition of the other kid in the apartment, Hedda Nussbaum being beaten beyond recognition. That changed domestic violence a great deal in the NYPD.
Yeah, that was a big focus on child abuse specifically. And I know from my time in the detective squad in Brooklyn, the Ronald Goldman and the Nicole Brown Simpson case, that's when it became must arrest situations. Anytime there was domestic violence, whether or not the complainant wanted an arrest. Used to be that if the complainant said, well, I don't want him arrested, I don't want her arrested, you'd refer it off to court. There was that change in policy where they said, you know what, once the report is made, the police are notified, it's a must arrest situation, and the district attorney's office would actually become the complainant in those type of cases.
You know, there were many times where, you know, the must arrest situation collided right into powerful people.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Someone with the power that they're going to get arrested right away. They're on the phone calling the mayor's office, calling this, calling every connection that they have. So those cases collided back in the day with proper police procedure and people that were connected, that were powerful people. I'll put it that way.
I've gotten a call from a chief on a case, and I said, Chief, all due respect, look who you're calling for. You better take a strong, hard look at who you're calling for and the facts of the case before you want to call my boss. And he called my boss, and we still went through with the arrest. The chief eventually backed off. He was trying to, you know, he wasn't saying, oh, I'm calling on behalf of this guy, don't arrest him. That's not what he was saying. He was saying, oh, I'm interested in the case, I know the guy. But I said, hey, take a long, hard look at your complainant, at my complainant, which is your friend, and the defendant. Take a look at your defendant. And, you know, he backed off after a while. So, again, you have to stand up to it sometimes because you do get those calls.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. You know, and they, oh, can you do anything for my friend? No, I really can't do anything for your friend because your friend beat the shit out of his wife. You know, this is that's Hedda Nussbaum. And when I tell you, when she was a younger woman, she was actually pretty. This guy's Joel.
She looked
Steinberg.
nothing like that. That's for sure.
That's Joel Steinberg. And initially, everyone wanted both of them arrested and charged with murder for the abuse of the child, him for the actual abuse, and her for standing by and doing nothing. And basically, she got the defense of almost the Stockholm syndrome that she identified with her captor, and she couldn't go against him because she viewed him as all powerful, and it was a horrendous case. Luckily, the young boy who they had also, and both kids they both illegally adopted, and luckily they were able to save the young boy, who I think now is in his 30s, and he survived, got out of there, and thrived. And it was a horrendous case.
That picture, that was an arrest photo. She was under arrest at that time. And
at that time, yes, she was under arrest. Yes.
They dropped the charges on her. They used her as a witness against him when they saw that she was obviously a victim of physical abuse from him. And he's now did his time in jail, and he's been paroled.
He's out. He's out. I think that his sentence was manslaughter because they couldn't get him for murder. So he got 15 years, and he served every day of his 15 years. But he's out now, and he's living in like a halfway house up in Hamilton Heights. And he's just as despicable and disgusting as he was, you know, years ago when he was arrested. Hard to believe.
Little Lisa Steinberg should rest in peace, even though that son of a gun is out walking the streets. It was terrible. She was a real victim of child abuse. Terrible.
Yeah, unbelievable. When I look at that picture, it just that was in the 6th precinct in Greenwich Village that occurred, and it was also a national story. It gained so much notoriety, and it was really. She's alive now, and she's out. I don't know exactly what she does, if she ever recovered her life, if she ever was able to have a normal life after this. But horrible case. Lisa,
When she testified in court, she looked a lot better. You could see in that picture, her nose, I believe her nose had been broken several times. She had fractures in different areas of her face. But when she testified, they obviously, she got back on track medically. So she healed, and hopefully she's doing well. And, got
yeah,
her life back.
the Irma Rivera, who we've had on the show numerous times, and was a young sex crimes detective back then. She was involved. It wasn't her case. The case was belonged to a detective in the 6th precinct, but she was very much involved in this case, and it was a horrible case. It just really was just a case that sort of rocked the city. When they talk about a case that rocks the city. Well, that was one of those cases that just rocked the city, that the abuse was so horrendous, and people just couldn't believe it. And it also rocked the police department.
I wonder if he got his ass whipped in jail. I would hope there was some jail justice for that guy.
I don't know if he did or not, but he's a despicable human being. He was probably asked by a lot of the other inmates to represent them because he was an attorney.
Yeah, he was an attorney. Yeah, exactly.
But he had been disbarred, and
he may have been protective custody too, based on the fact of that he killed a little girl. A lot of times they give those guys special custody. So, unfortunately,
yeah, I mean, just totally.
He used his law. You're not coming in here without a search warrant. Do you have an arrest warrant? Things like that. He stopped the police right at the door, like you said earlier on, Bill. So
unbelievable. Richella Pranzo loves Irma. John Walsh's son Adam, so heartbreaking. I'm reading some of the stuff from the chat. Amanda Lottie, Kimberly Leach of Florida, killed by Ted Bundy. Horrible. Wow. You guys are bringing up cases that coming from the past. Guys, I think we basically covered what we wanted to cover here. As this case proceeds, we'll revisit it, and I want to thank all you guys. Many names here I don't recognize, and which means some people are finding out about us from.
They got to subscribe, Bill, and give us.
Yeah, you got to hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up, and if you want to come by during the day, I'll sing you a song. But it's this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories, Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil, and again, I just want to thank everyone for coming by, and we have a good time pretty much every day that we do this show. Phil, final words.
We've covered this story for the last year. I really feel terrible. The family, we're going to come up on a year that she was killed. Condolences to the family. My heart goes out to them. And again, hopefully this lawsuit won't bring too much stress to them. Again, I still feel that those officers acted within the guide of the law. So I still stand with them. I do think that this lawsuit will be settled in favor of the Petito family. And let's just hope that we can move forward, that no other person should suffer domestic violence like this. And we can learn some things from this case and train our police officers going forward to possibly interact and take action where needed to prevent any such tragedies from occurring in the future.
Folks, thank you so much for listening to us. This is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories, Sergeant Bill and Detective Phil. Have a great night, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.